Support for this show comes from Lead Quizzes. Lead Quizzes helps you easily set up high-converting quizzes to capture and qualify leads for your business. Visit leadquizzes.com/podcast to get a 14-day free trial today.
Even though I had this golden goose egg of a practice, the guy I sold it to, I knew he wasn't the right fit. I knew it. But he ends up going BK. So I end up getting totally screwed out of, I sold it for $300,000. I got screwed out of that. I didn't have any income coming in. Fortunately, LifeAid just had just enough traction where we got $1,000 a month. So literally I go from making $350 a year to making $1,000 a month living in a 400 square foot RV.
From Lead Quizzes, it's Journey to Seven Figures, a show about entrepreneurs and the stories behind how they grew their business to seven figures and beyond. We cover the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the lessons they learned along the way. So welcome back to Journey to Seven Figures. Today I'm interviewing Aaron Hinde. Aaron co-founded LifeAid, a clean and nutritional drink company in 2011 for healthy, active lifestyles. And so instead of directly taking on the mammoths like Red Bull or Gatorade, they focus their drinks on specific niches like CrossFit, golf, and partying. They now sell in 50% of CrossFit gyms across the US, and you can find their products in retailers such as Whole Foods, Sprouts, and GMC. Last year, they generated $21 million in sales, on track for $35 million this year. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Jeremy, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to jump into your story. So Aaron, let's talk about kind of how you came up with the idea of this and got things started.
Yeah, I'm based here in Santa Cruz, California. This is the birthplace of CrossFit. A lot of cool brands come from this town. And, I was a sports chiropractor, solopreneur for 10 years, had a very successful practice, and was seeing a lot of athletes from high school all the way up to collegiate and pros, and, constantly trying to get, especially the younger athletes, off the sports and energy drinks and, onto something cleaner. And the challenge was there really wasn't anything that was really clean and functional on the market. So they'd be coming in with a Monster or a Red Bull. And I'm like, look, guys, you keep consuming that for 10 years, you're going to start getting adrenal fatigue. And we knew it was going to be very problematic. So there was an opportunity, I think, in the marketplace to create something that was very clean, something that was very functional, and it actually worked, but something that you could give a wink, wink to the moms out there that it's not going to poison their kids with a bunch of sugar and caffeine and taurine and all the other garbage ingredients they put in those things.
Awesome. So you guys identified this problem. You had this background in like nutrition and chiropractic, working with kind of who your target audience would be. You guys were in the area with CrossFit. So how do you go from having this idea to like deciding you're going to create a nutritional drink company?
Well, I think the big push was I was coming down to the beverage aisle at a local grocery store with my young son, Bronson, who was probably only 4 years old at the time. And he reached into the open air cooler and grabbed one of the energy drinks that I was trying to get all these young athletes off of. And the aha moment was like, the energy drinks are, they're functional, they work. They're very cool. They're very appealing. They're sexy and hip, but they're not healthy. And I think the reason why the younger generation doesn't reach naturally for a kombucha or a chia or something like that is because they're acquired taste. They're more hippy dippy. And so we wanted to kind of marry those two worlds. And, I met my business partner, Orion, in a CrossFit gym, and we were spitballing ideas. And we had this idea of like, what if we married the functionality and the cool factor with actually health benefits? There could be something real special there.
Okay, awesome. So you guys got to come up with some kind of formulation that's going to be healthy and it's going to taste good. How do you guys go about doing that?
Well, on his birthday in 2011, we had the concept of LifeAid. And then we thought, well, shoot, if we're going to do a LifeAid product, we work out 4 or 5 days a week in CrossFit. Why don't we do something for FitAid? And we golf once a week when we used to have free time and golf. We registered 80 domain names around the AID in one night. And then got to work on formulation with my background, kind of reverse engineering what should go in a drink. What are specifically CrossFitters looking for in the supplements that they're taking in pill form? Why are they taking it? What type of benefits are they looking for? And how can we put those efficacious doses in a beverage format? Because, supplements are great. I've been a supplement advocate and fan for my whole life. But there's no lifestyle component around that. You take them and they're gone. Nobody knows. But beverages are all about lifestyle.
Okay. So you guys, with your background, you kind of figure out what are the right doses, what are the ingredients you want to put in it. Do you guys go out and hire like a consultant to start really putting it into an actual drink?
Yeah, we put, $30,000 in a bank account each, and we had some preliminary artwork done up. We had some preliminary formulations, and we went to what's called a flavor house, and that's, a company that has a lab and basically helps, make your vision a reality.
And so like you guys put 60 grand into it all together. Did that kind of get the job done, or were you guys really stretching and bootstrapping it to make this work?
Oh, we stretched and bootstrapped, and this is an expensive industry that could suck all your money out of you real quick. So we had this vision, and we were very effective at selling the vision to friends and family, and thank God it worked out.
Okay. So what did you do? Did you have to start like working deals? I mean, did you just pay like people what they could afford for like flavoring or even like packaging these drinks? What did you guys do?
Absolutely. A lot of deal working, a lot of hustling, a lot of trading what we had at the time, which was equity in exchange for services, which I don't recommend, in hindsight. But, when you're running short on cash and people believe in align with the vision, then, that is something that you can play with.
Okay. Awesome. So you guys have multiple niches that you talked about. You have LifeAid, you have FitAid, you have GolferAid. For me, in my experience, having a lot of different stuff that can be a big distraction. So how did you guys choose what to really focus on?
Yeah, I mean, the first three products that we launched very close together were FitAid, more geared towards the CrossFit market, as you mentioned, GolferAid, obviously for golf, and PartyAid for the Burning Man kind of crowd that we were also part of. My business partner is a longtime DJ, and we've been going to festivals and Burning Man for years. So they were really around our first three passions. But you're right, there are three totally different markets. We had three different websites even when we first launched, one for each product. Still have different social media handles for each. So it was very difficult because it was like running three different businesses. So one of the best pieces of advice that I got early on was choose a single target market. And we were running out of cash very quickly. We were spread thin between basically three almost different companies. We were purposefully not cross-pollinating those audiences because a burner may not really, associate with a golfer. And so we looked at the business and where we were at the time. First year, I think we did about 400 grand in business, and said, okay, which one of these can be activated for the least amount of capital and has the greatest trajectory, and that was FitAid. So we went all in with FitAid specifically in CrossFit.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about that. So you guys did 400 grand in your first year. How did you guys get those sales?
That was mainly with GolferAid, actually, in golf courses. So we were selling, golf courses one at a time, putting the product in golf courses. We were getting pretty good turn, but there was some challenges with that model, mainly from a distribution perspective. We were also putting our brand and mini fridge in CrossFit gyms. And when we looked at the business, even though GolferAid produced the majority of the revenue, the trajectory, the sell-in, the turn, the sell-through was much easier with FitAid and CrossFit. So that really weighed on our decision to push all in with CrossFit.
Okay. So how did you guys start acquiring these different CrossFit gyms? So now you guys are at like 50% of the gyms in the US.
Well, we met at 25K Genius Network and learning how information marketers, so people that are selling things online, not product based, how they were doing that was very influential in our approach. So we basically started doing direct mail where we would force a 4-pack of product on a gym. They didn't even request it. We just sent it to them and forced them into a sales sequence with an irresistible offer. And I remember that first month we did that, we got 30 new gyms, and we used to ring the bell in the office every time we got a new account. And we were so excited. Some days we'd get 2 or 3 and we're ringing, everyone's high-fiving. Then the next month we get like 100. Then we got 200, and then we had to stop ringing the bell, and it just was off to the races from there.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk through that strategy a little bit. So you guys, what was the offer that you created for these CrossFit gyms?
Basically at the time, and it's a much sweeter offer now because we know lifetime value and we can afford to go negative for a while, but it was purchase 10 cases of product and we'll give them a free mini fridge. So you go into a bar today, you don't order, not that I would order anyway, a Monster vodka, right? You order Red Bull vodka because Red Bull early on took a strategy of going into every bar and planting that fridge in the bar. So we thought, well, Red Bull is a multi-billion-dollar brand. Why don't we do the exact same thing? So we would offer this free FitAid refrigerator to CrossFit gyms that basically at the time were only selling bottled water that they got from Costco.
And so they got really excited by this. Did you do any follow-up to try and close these people, or you just sent it out and see if they ordered?
We had a pretty extensive time-sensitive follow-up sequence. So it was like a 7-day offer. So we kind of hit them with email and snail mail and even a phone call during that first week. Then there was a little bit of a downsell after that. And then we kept drip marketing, at least once a month for 12 months. And typically in that first sequence, we would close about 15% of the cold gyms that we sent to. And then over the course of 12 months, we ended up closing close to 50% of those gyms.
Wow. How long did it take you guys to figure out that sequence of like following up and getting those people really closed?
I've got an advisor, a friend of ours, a friend of the company, Ben Altadonna, who I knew from the chiropractic space, who's a brilliant marketer. And he's friends with Joe Polish and all those guys. They all learned from Dan Kennedy. And he really helped kind of guide some of those initial sequences. I had it roughed out, but I knew just enough to be dangerous. He helped us refine it a little bit. And, we stuck with that original sequence for a long, long time before we even started tweaking, messing with it.
Hmm. So when you first started, were you like discouraged at all, or did you start getting sales like right away?
Well, when we first started, it was very discouraging because the amount of capital you can burn through, lack of traction, you start having a few people on payroll. I sold my practice, my business partner sold his practice. So there's a lot on the line when you've got especially a wife and kids and family members and friends that have invested in you and you're running out of capital. I mean, we had many, many occasions where, we had $3,000 in payroll due the next day with $0 in the bank, and then something would come through, a purchase order or new investment check would come through. And I mean, we skated like that way probably at least a dozen times we could have went under.
That's interesting. So you guys find this one strategy. How did you guys develop the list where you have the physical address, the email, you figure out who the right person is to contact? What did you guys do?
We hired a guy in Bangladesh off one of the sites where you can get basically discounted labor overseas, and had him go through and just scour the internet one at a time and get all the information, contact information, website and everything. And every week he'd produce a new list, and then we would send it out. And basically we would only send out as many as we could afford to send because, there's costs involved in shipping and product. And so I think we were sending out maybe 100 a week for a while, and then we upped it to, as we could afford to do so, to a couple hundred a week.
Very cool. Awesome. So you guys did this, and then with this strategy, how far did that scale you guys?
That scaled us all the way to probably $7 million we were doing just by going really deep into originally CrossFit. And then that started, we had some, nice byproducts associated with that. We started getting pulled into other gym chains like Lifetime Fitness, Gold's Gym, et cetera, Fit Body Boot Camp. So started really going real deep just in the fitness market.
Awesome. So you guys really scaled this strategy of just like going out to these gyms, and then for like the distribution, you said, are they starting to reach out to you, or did you guys do some strategic stuff to reach them?
They started to reach out to us. And, the nice thing about going deep into a single niche like CrossFit, and then now we're deep in Spartan Race as well, is distributors, key buyers, retailers, they do CrossFit. They race Spartan races. So when you're crossing that finish line of a Spartan race and you get a nice cold can of FitAid, and you work for, say, a Whole Foods or somebody, and you're looking at that can going, this is great. This is just what I need after this workout. Why don't we sell this in our store? So instead of doing how most companies do it, which is beg, please take me on your shelf, and then you hope that it sells and you got to pay, and your positioning is horrible in that situation. We're getting pulled into accounts and having the ability to either say yes or no, but in a very good position as they want us versus us wanting them.
That's awesome. That's brilliant. So I'm guessing that you mentioned like when you first started out, like you didn't know how long the lifetime value was. So like, how did you guys increase like reorders, make sure people are recognizing you? Because I'm sure in the drink space, people go and they find what they want versus necessarily trying new things.
Yeah, I mean, for direct-to-consumer model, we developed a very irresistible offer, which is you get 2 cans of our products, and they retail for $3 a can. So get 2 cans for 99 cents, free shipping, no obligation for future purchase, and not a continuity model. Just get cans in hands. So we're focused on cans in hands, top of funnel, and then converting them from there. And because the products resonate so well, whether it's FitAid after workout or FocusAid after lunchtime when you're kind of feeling that afternoon lull, our products are effective. So getting a can in hand, we know is going to lead to conversions, and fortunately it has.
Okay, awesome. So when you guys first launched these, do you guys have the same formulation as you did in the beginning, or like how are you getting feedback to make them better?
Yeah, no, we don't. A lot of the base formulations are the same, but we're constantly looking to improve based on consumer feedback. For instance, in the early days of FitAid, someone says, hey, love the product, but you're using a synthetic form of vitamin E. I think you should use the natural form of vitamin E. So looked into it. They were right. We were using a synthetic form just based on ignorance. And so looked into it. And even though it increased our cost of goods, I think a penny a can, which is actually very significant when you look at things in scale, we decided, well, it's a better product to use a natural form, so we're going to switch it. So constantly looking to make improvements, whether that's to the flavor profile, to the formulation, to the packaging. They've all gone through multiple renditions.
Awesome. And are you guys naturally, organically getting this feedback, or are you like going out there and soliciting feedback from your customers as well?
Both. I mean, especially in the beginning, we were doing so many different shows. I mean, I remember one time we did a big fitness event, literally went straight from there to Sacramento and did a big golf event. So we're changing out of like Lululemon and FitAid shirts into polos and golf raid attire. We do a golf raid show and then left the show. And that evening there was a big fire dancing comp in San Francisco. And so then we were slinging party aid at the fire dance. So, we're doing outfit changes and constantly talking to people at all of these shows. And you get a lot of, very candid feedback when you're giving people product on flavor. They look at the can. Fortunately for us, 70% of people read labels now before taking something. So a lot of label readers out there giving us very honest feedback.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Like coming from the marketing background of like having an agency, like so many people, they're like, if they didn't get their marketing working right away, they'd feel really discouraged, or like they wouldn't want to look at their product, or like the product needs to get better. Are people actually getting the results that they want or the value from it? So that's awesome. That's great feedback.
Yeah, even on the marketing, when we first launched, some of our direct response and Force 4-pack campaigns, like the very first month we did it, before we landed that first 30 gyms, it was probably the first couple of weeks, we only got like a 1% response or 2%. It just wasn't paying for itself. And I remember everyone was like, this is failing. It's not working. We told you it wasn't going to work. I'm like, wait, relax. Look at everything. And we were using Infusionsoft. We still do. But there's this little box you got to check to have their email as marketable. So literally nobody was getting any follow-up emails. They got the initial snail mail with an offer in it, and then they got a postcard, but no emails. And the whole thing was based on, a lot of follow-up with the email. So as soon as that box started getting checked, we went from 2% to 15% pretty much overnight.
Wow. We'll get back to the show in a minute, but first a quick thanks to our sponsor, Lead Quizzes. If you want to grow your business to 7 figures and beyond, you must learn how to generate leads predictably. When I first started my business, lead generation felt like riding a roller coaster. I would have huge sales months and then months with nothing. This happened because I relied solely on referrals and networking to grow my business. Predicting growth and investing in the future were frightening because I didn't have control over my lead generation. That was before we created Lead Quizzes. Now I predictably generate leads in my sleep and have stopped worrying about where the next sale will come from. Top marketers like Neil Patel and Lewis House have used Lead Quizzes to increase their lead capture by up to 500%. Think about it. Quizzes are fun, engaging, and you can offer personalized feedback in exchange for your quiz taker's contact information. Lead Quizzes is a software that allows you to set up high-converting quizzes quickly without having to hire an expensive programmer. In fact, our users have generated over 3 million leads for their businesses. Take control of your lead generation today and start your 14-day free trial by going to leadquizzes.com/podcast. So did you guys just start figuring stuff out on your own, or were you going out to like friends or these masterminds like Genius Network to be able to like improve that follow-up sequence and really multiply those results?
Both, always just absorbing like a sponge. I mean, from podcasts like this to books to masterminds to mentors, there's so many resources and you should really be utilizing all of them. They're all there. Most of them are pretty much free, especially when it comes to books and podcasts, but also a lot of trial by fire, just figuring out, what works for us and our audience. Because the key is not looking within your industry to see what's working and trying to mimic that. Then you're just going to be late to the party and a me too. The real skill set is looking at what's working in unrelated industries and how can you apply that to your industry with your own flavor on it, speaking to your audience in a very authentic voice. So I think that's one thing that we did really well early on.
Yeah, that's awesome. So one thing I learned from my mentor that I liked is like, you're talking about you had a 1% response rate, but like the first thing that we had to do is we had to look at like all the analytics of like, what's the response rate, how many people are ordering and like any of the steps in between. And that's where you find the optimization. And once you make individual steps, like for you guys, it's like this box checking thing for follow-up. And then maybe it's adding, phone calls to follow up people and like just stacking it. That's how you really get those results.
Absolutely. 100%.
That's awesome. So you guys went to 7 million, really focusing on a good niche, one good marketing channel. I mean, was your chiropractic business anywhere like near that? Like what was that kind of growing pains like going from to 7 million so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, I was a solopreneur for 10 years, had a great practice, about 30 new patients per month, all by referral for 10 years straight. So kind of the go-to guy in my town. I generated 350 grand a year every single year by myself. So it was a great thing. And I think, probably one of the most challenging things for people going from 6 figures to 7 figures is comfort. Right. I spent a lot of money when I was at chiro. I wasn't smart with my money and this and that, but it was very comfortable because of the predictability of the income. And really, I was only working 25 hours a week to generate that. So I was so comfortable. So I think that's what keeps a lot of people from making that next leap is they're not suffering enough. And when I finally sold my practice, just a little bit of context, I had purchased some property off the grid in the Santa Cruz Mountains, literally off the grid. So it was a deer trail. There was nothing on it. And I got a chainsaw out and hired a tractor and cut in a little road and a little pad and put a trailer, a 400 square foot trailer on the property with the intent of building a nice house for my family on the top of the property, beautiful views. And so we're living in this trailer and I'm a chiro. And then this LifeAid thing starts to get a little bit of traction. And my business partner and I looking at each other like, look, we know we can't make both successful. I can't make my practice. He can't make his practice and LifeAid successful at the same time because it's just you're diluting your attention too much. So we both made this critical decision to sell our practices. So we sell our practices and we're not pulling any money from LifeAid at the time. So I'm literally I'm living in a trailer. I'm paying all my bills through the sale of my practice. Well, several months later, even though I had this golden goose egg of a practice, the guy I sold it to, I knew he wasn't the right fit. I knew it. But he ends up going BK. So I end up getting totally screwed out of, I sold it for $300,000. I got screwed out of that. I didn't have any income coming in. Fortunately, LifeAid just had just enough traction where we got $1,000 a month. So literally I go from making $350 a year to making $1,000 a month living in a 400 square foot RV. And I'll tell you what, suffering like that has given me such great appreciation for the business and where it's at now. It was the best thing that could have happened to me. If I was too comfortable, I probably wouldn't have been as motivated to make sure that we kicked ass here. Because I'm thinking, here I'm not making any income. I got a non-compete. I did not make, I'm not getting payments. And all of a sudden, I'm only making $1,000 a month. I need to be making more money than that and really putting, everything I had into making sure that, we were hit it out of the park with LifeAid.
That's a great story. Did you ever feel like giving up or like it wasn't going to work out?
Yeah, many times. I mean, there's dark days. I mean, I'm looking in the mirror and get emotional. Like I still get choked up today, even thinking about the risk that I put my family in. Like, oh my God, it wasn't smart. Fortunately, it ended up being the right thing to do. But God, when you have so many people dependent on you, from employees to investors to your family. And, I've studied the very successful people because I've lost everything that I've owned a couple times in my life now. So I'm trying not to let that happen again. And they always talk about one consistent thing, which is protecting the downside. And I did not protect the downside at all. I mean, there was great upside, but, huge downside. And thank God that downside never became a total reality and we were able to capitalize on the upside.
So what did you learn from that? If you're starting over again, would you do it differently?
I would say I wouldn't do it differently only because there was some special sauce in there that made everything work. And if I screwed in, I did anything differently, I don't know if the outcome would be the same. My advice, though, would be make sure that you have traction prior to burning the ships at the shore, would be my only advice. You have to burn the ships at the shore at some point in time. You have to do that. But make sure you have traction. Even if it's just a little bit of traction, make sure there's traction there. Make sure it's just enough traction to pay yourself a little bit so you can support, your family and not be out on the streets.
Yeah. Okay. So what kind of team do you guys have in place? I mean, you guys have grown to $21 million on pace for 35. What kind of team have you had to put in place to support that growth?
We have an incredible team. It's been an essential component of our growth. We've got, I think, 63 full-time team members now. And a lot of that has been learning the hard way. But we've bulked up quite a bit on the sales side of things for key accounts and sales support and that kind of thing. Like having the right people in operations to help support those sales is critical. Not being afraid to hire people that are smarter than you, not be afraid to hire people that are more experienced than you, that are more articulate than you. I felt a little bit threatened by that kind of thing early on. I don't anymore. I encourage it. I look for it, making sure that I think one mistake a lot of entrepreneurs make, especially as you're scaling rapidly, is you're bringing people on out of necessity, which is how you pretty much should do it in the beginning. You don't want to be hiring too quickly and have a big nut that you can't cover, but you're bringing people out of necessity. So you start cutting corners, and there's little red flags that appear during the interview process where you're like, they're good enough, they'll be fine, and you bring them on the team anyway. And that is the worst thing, because one employee that doesn't work out, and it sucks so much life and energy out of you. It can create, legal issues. It's just a time suck. You're investing in them and training them and everything. So making sure you get the right team on board, being patient with the process, figuring out what works for you and what your process is. Stick to the process from hiring, stick to a good onboarding process. Make sure that everyone's a great cultural fit is probably the most important. And then, you'll build out an incredible team. But if you start cutting corners, you're going to pay the consequences.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think one of the things that's always really interested me is the first thing that you ever have, the first customer, the first employee, whatever the first traction that you get, it builds momentum. And so the reverse of that is if, you bring on this employee and it doesn't work out, that could shift the momentum of your strategy and your direction. And it actually has a huge impact.
Shifts the momentum, shifts the trajectory. And as you bring on A-tier players, if they're looking at other players on the team that aren't A-tier and they're going, well, they put up with mediocrity over there, why am I busting my ass? So everybody's got to bring their A game. And as long as, everyone knows what the expectations are, we're all motivated towards a common goal, then, it works out great. But as soon as you start making those exceptions or bringing on some people that aren't right at par or are not the right cultural fit, they poison the water, and then it really affects everybody.
Yeah. Okay. You have 63 full-time employees now, but how did you get better at managing some of these people? Were you automatically good at that, or did you have to go through books or get coaches?
I tend to be more of a people person. I have really studied and looked at, and my mentors that have bigger teams, and learned to be more Socratic in my approach, learned to be very empathetic, but I do, have high demands of my people. So I think it was a combination of being self-taught, learning as I go, and just bringing on good people that were patient enough with letting my style develop as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and as a manager, and then hiring really good managers that really are great at building out teams, because there's only small few people that report directly to me, and some people report directly to my business partner, but they have big teams underneath them.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you guys said you raised money. Can you talk us through a little bit around what was your strategy behind that and how that's helped you guys?
Yeah, in 2016, we got to a point where, we're doing huge revenue every month. So say we did $2 million in revenue, but we only had $100K in the bank. That's running super. If you like to play blackjack, that's called thin to win, right? I mean, that's too thin. So as we're scaling and these purchase orders are coming in, we're having to produce more. We're having to hold more inventory. There's more outflow, and somebody might be on net 30 or net 45. So we're not realizing that income right away, that revenue right away. And so we realized to continue to scale, we needed to have a strategic partner. And so we positioned ourselves. We started putting ourselves out to market, and there's a lot of good private equity companies out there. There's strategics, there's some super angels, and started really meeting with people until we found a partner in Carp Riley, who's out of Connecticut. Alan Carp is on our board of directors. Couldn't have found a better partner and better alignment. They have a ton of experience in the consumer packaged goods CPG space and restaurant space, and they had faith in us. And it's not just the business, but I think any investor will tell you that it's all about the founding team and what's that team look like. They're investing in the people just as much as they are the products. So fortunately, we kind of checked the boxes with them. We were able to kind of tighten up our financials, and they presented us a fair offer, and we were off to the races.
And so what did you guys go to them and say, we need this money for? Was it strictly to put cash in the bank and have those reserves, or was it to also expand?
Yeah, it was to expand headcount. So at that time, we had literally 2 salespeople on staff. For even 3 months before that, we had 0. It was just, basically me. So we went from 0 to 2, and then 2 to, probably 20. After that, cash came in. Production was a big part of it, being able to hold inventory. Even I think in early 2016, we went dark on our primary SKU, which is FitAid. Being dark is the kiss of death in retail. Like retail.
What does that mean?
That means that you literally don't have any product to ship them. So you have purchase orders that you can't fulfill. When you fast forward that means the shelf is empty and they have shelf space for you with no product. So that pisses everybody off really quickly. And that's a big no-no in retail. So, you want to avoid going dark, but you don't want to overproduce either, because then you're sitting on all this inventory. Fortunately, we got an 18-month shelf life, but some products have a 1-month shelf life or a 2-week shelf life. So I can't even imagine how they deal with inventory control. But that's a big one, making sure that you can meet the demand for your product as you continue to grow and scale.
Yeah. So there's always like multiple ways to do things. There's raising money, there's bootstrapping. I've heard a lot of success stories around raising money, but also a lot around like failure. So it sounds like you guys are pretty happy. Is there anything that you feel like made that partnership work really well, as far as maybe selection or how you guys structured it or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and this is relevant to investors, this is relevant to, your team, this is relevant to customers, and it all comes down to alignment. Making sure that you're in perfect alignment on what the expectations are. For us specifically with the investor, all the preferences were very LifeAid friendly. They weren't punitive like, some of these private equity or deals can be. So the preferences were in alignment. The valuation was fair. It wasn't skyrocketing valuations like we're starting to see in CPG and tech. It was a very fair valuation, which was fair for the investor, fair for us. The timeline, that's another big thing. Making sure you're in alignment on the timeline. They gave us, I think, like a 10-year timeline, whereas a lot of private equity, might be looking at a 3-year timeline. So just making sure you're in alignment on all the big boxes that need to be checked is very important. And being okay with, if you're not in alignment, you're not in alignment, and just being okay with moving on to something else. Just like when you're bringing on a team member, you don't want to force a square peg in a round hole. It's just going to lead to disaster. So making sure that you're in full alignment with the investors is huge.
That's great advice. Okay, Aaron, well, as we're wrapping up, just a couple of quick questions for you. What's the one thing that you did that you think had the biggest impact on your growth?
Going deep in a single target market, for sure.
Okay. And to expand on that, like what's the right point where you should start expanding into maybe, GolferAid, FitAid, where you guys are doing these different sections? Like when is the right time to start doing that?
When you have very close to full saturation and a little bit of free cash flow where you can start experimenting with other target audiences.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I remember like in college, like everybody would look at like someone like Elon Musk who's running 3 companies. And he's like, well, it's Elon Musk. He has tons of capital. He's been around the block, and that's still like to be seen as far as how successful he's going to be running 3 companies at once.
Well, he's an anomaly. And if you look at it, going deep with PayPal, getting a successful check out there, and then coming in to Tesla as there was already, some concept and everything, and being able to fuel that with capital. And look, Elon's not running day-to-day operations on $3 billion companies. I guarantee you that. He is sitting in high-level meetings talking about the overall direction and strategy of the company, but he is not running things to the degree of, say, little me at LifeAid or any startup is running it. So it's not I don't think, a fair comparison.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. And then you've answered my other questions already. So where can people learn more about you, Aaron?
Yeah, for us, you could always visit our website, LifeAid, LIFEAID, lifeaidbevco.com. Check us out on Instagram, our biggest Instagram, which we've done a really good job at growing and getting engagement and monetizing. I think we've got about 185,000 just on our FitAid Instagram alone. Or if you want to interact with me, always shoot me an instant message on my Instagram, which is just my name, Aaron Hinde, Hinde.
Awesome. And if you guys want to try out his stuff, like I mentioned, it's in a lot of CrossFit gyms. It's in Whole Foods, Sprouts, GMC. So
Vitamin Shop, Kroger, Safeway. Check us out.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for jumping on and sharing everything, Aaron.
Jeremy, appreciate it. It was fun.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for listening to our show this week. If you want to find out more about Aaron Hinde and the lessons he shared today, or read our show notes, visit leadquizzes.com/12. If you'd like to start generating more leads for your business and get a free trial to Lead Quizzes, go to leadquizzes.com/podcast. Next week, I'm really excited because I'm interviewing Rand Fishkin on how he built Moz to $47.4 million per year with 36,000 paid users and over 3 million monthly organic visits to his website. Please subscribe to our show so you don't miss this next episode. I'm Jeremy Ellens, and you've been listening to Journey to Seven Figures.